What's up everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Ryan Becker and every week I drop a new video where I talk about absurd issues in religion, culture, and society. This week's absurdity, early adulthood without my father. In this video, I'll be sharing my experience of going through early adulthood without my father and some of the things that I learned along the way. I hope that by sharing some of my experience, it maybe can help encourage someone else in their own. Oh, and quick disclaimer. This video will be a bit emotionally heavy, but I promise to end it on a happy note for you. So if you're new here, thanks for stopping by. Make sure to click subscribe and like this video so I can grow the channel. If you're friends with me or have ever heard me speak publicly at a church or at an event, then you're probably aware of a little bit of my story. If not, here are the cliff notes. When I was 17, during my senior year of high school, I lost my dad to a sudden heart attack, and I almost lost my mom to lung cancer just a few months later. Spoiler alert, my mom is still alive and kicking and is the most resilient and toughest woman I know. So, hi mom. I'm 27 now, and in October of this year, it will be a decade since all of this happened. Not everything I learned was good, but my experience is what it is. I'm in counseling now, and I'm learning more of the ways that my trauma really impacted me and still is. I'm a work in progress, and that's okay. What most people don't know about my story is that my older siblings and myself were all at very different, busy stages of life when this happened. And during that time, I also had to put down our family dog at the vet, and I lost a friend to a car accident a month between my dad's death and my mom's diagnosis. Pair all of that with my family banding together to support my mom through her fight with cancer, and it meant that I never really took the time to grieve appropriately or even to learn to grieve appropriately. I just had to survive. Very quickly, I realized that my dad was never going to be there for some of the most important moments of my life. All my graduations, relationship milestones, career accomplishments, starting my own family, and more would all take place without him. I also realized that he had been my go-to source for knowledge and information about virtually every problem or question that I encountered, and now, I didn't know where to go. But I thought that if I dwelled on all of that for too long, it would paralyze me in a time where I couldn't afford to stand still. I just had to keep moving forward. So I learned to shut all of that down as best as I could, only accessing it when absolutely necessary. Compartmentalization became the motto for my life, not just a skill I employed, and my body went into survival mode almost immediately. I had to navigate applying to college, figuring out finances, completing my senior year, relationships, taxes, learning to travel, learning about cars, learning how to do yard work, because that was fun and relaxing for him, so he didn't make us do it often. And, well, everything else about my life, and I had to figure it out completely on my own. I was back at school the day after he died, taking tests, sitting in class, and going to work, all on less than an hour of sleep. I had people yelling at me to go home and grieve, but I didn't want to fall behind or sit at home alone and cry. I was the lead role in my senior class play only a month away, and I needed to be there for rehearsals. See, I needed to distract myself from those emotions, because I had things to do. My body cried on its own, even when I felt like I was in a completely neutral emotional state. But I cannot ever remember just sitting down and letting myself cry over everything. Even now, ask me and I'll be the first to tell you that crying is great and it's nothing to be ashamed of, and that we should all do it. But when it comes time for me to cry, I end up resisting and shutting it down. As a result of all of this, for the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. And this isn't any one person's fault. Everyone had lives to live. And while I did have friends that I relied on during this time and beyond, and I'm grateful for them, I often didn't share what I was feeling because I felt like it was my burden to carry, not theirs. And while it is true that friends can't carry my burdens, I wish I had realized sooner that my friends could carry me, and that while I was in those moments of pain, they could have helped sustain me. I remember shooting hoops in my driveway and thinking that at any moment I would look at the end of my street and see his car turning in as my dad would come home from work. Even now, that picture is fresh in my head, and sometimes it still feels like he could just randomly show up in my life at any moment by turning that corner. In fact, in early 2019, I actually had a nightmare that he was still alive and had deceived everyone just to get away from us. I remember confronting him, feeling like his death was my fault, like I wasn't good enough for him to stick around. When I was 18, I remember feeling like I had to be tougher than I was, stronger than I was, and braver than I was, because if no one was going to show me how to be those things, then I would figure it out on my own. I remember pouring a seemingly endless amount of energy trying to salvage toxic relationships, both friendships and romantic ones, because I didn't believe that I deserved better ones, and because I didn't want to lose more people to things that I could not control. I remember desperately searching for validation and affirmation that I was good enough for any little thing or for any given person. And I remember clinging to stories and jokes that made people laugh, repeating them over and over again, hoping for that same response from those around me, that they would laugh, deeming what I said as good enough. This is actually something that I still actively wrestle with. I resolved, with all of this going on, that I would become everything that I would have normally relied on my dad for. I researched things endlessly, learning how to change tires on my car, teaching myself how to use lawn equipment, learning about student loans and college financing, and learning about all the random facts in life that somehow our dads just seem to know. If my dad couldn't be that for me, then I was going to be that for me, and I was going to be that for others. I wanted to be the person that others could come to when they needed to know something or learn how to do something, and if I didn't know the answer, I prided myself in the fact that I could find it. I wanted to become the dad for my future family that my dad could no longer be for me. One of the things that almost everyone does when they lose a parent is to try and replace them with other similar parental role models. For me, this meant looking for father figures. These were older men than myself whom I looked up to, could learn from, and could ask questions to. And many of them likely never even knew I considered them as a father figure unless I told them. These were men that came and went, and many changed from father figure to friend, where they no longer were someone I needed to look to, but rather someone I could just journey through life with. I've taken the liberty of putting some of my father figures on screen now, with their last names abbreviated for privacy. And if you've been a father figure to me at some point, whether it was for a summer, a couple weeks, or several years, or maybe just one small moment or encounter, I just want to say thank you for guiding me, believing in my potential, and letting me grow into the person that I am today. The great thing about mentors and parental figures is that they don't have to know that they are that for you. These were just people that I thought were good examples of what I should aspire to be like in my personal life, my professional life, or what have you. At 27, there are still people that I look to as father figures. I don't know if that ever really stops, but it's always helpful for me to look to those who have gone before me, so that I can be comforted by the knowledge that the journey is even possible at all. Another reality I've experienced is facing anxiety and nerves whenever I feel powerless in a situation or environment. The night I learned about my dad's passing started with a phone call that was completely unexpected. And since then, I panic if I receive a text or a call from someone that I haven't heard from in a while, or just wasn't expecting to hear from at all. I even get anxious when someone doesn't respond within a few hours. While we all value control and agency in our lives, it's been amplified in my own heart, because when I felt like I don't have control is when some of the worst things have happened to me. It's that very same need for control that causes me to resist the urge to cry. I want to control how I feel, not let my emotions control me, which is ironic because if I don't deal with them one way, my body will deal with them another, whether that's through constant muscle tension, impatient outbursts, stress, and more. I literally don't know how to relax my body or my mind sometimes. The other reality I had to face is that because I spent so much of my time from 18 to 24 years old just learning how to navigate my life and figuring out what to do, that I never really took the time to get to know who I am. There were destructive habits and behaviors that I had that I never got rid of or even identified in the first place. I felt like even though I may have been ahead of some of my peers in life skills, I was very far behind in actually knowing who I was. My life had forgone self-discovery for the sake of survival and perseverance. So it wasn't until a lot of that calmed down and I wasn't swamped with life stressors that my personal issues were amplified and I gained the motivation to begin dealing with them. This is what led me to finally discover at 24 that I had sleep apnea, at 26 that I have ADHD, and to discover that I needed to get my tonsils removed. At 27, I realized I needed to get counseling to deal with the grief, trauma, and more. The last 3 years, I have begun to feel like I'm finally starting to take control of my life the way I should have a long time ago. I feel like I'm starting to catch up emotionally with others around me, and I'm beginning to be confident in myself and discover the things about myself that I should have appreciated and valued all along. Which brings me to the point of this video. Maybe you are someone who has dealt with loss similarly to me. Maybe you haven't fully processed your grief and are realizing that you need some help. Maybe it's been Father's Day or Mother's Day, and you're just having a rough time. If that's you, let me be the first to tell you that you aren't alone, and that there are so many of us that are walking this path too. It's okay for you to feel upset, sad, or frustrated, and I hope that by sharing some of my experience and some of the things that I've learned about myself, that maybe you will feel a little less alone in yours. Or maybe, if you haven't lost a parent or family member, you'll hug them a little tighter and a little longer the next time you see them. My pain or grief is no reason for everyone else not to celebrate the people in their lives. I'm inviting you into my experience because I believe we all become better when we listen to and embrace the experiences of others. There's no big practical lesson here. There's only the hope that by sharing a little of my life, someone else might feel a little less lonely in their own. Now, I promised you that I would end on a positive note, and I will. At the end of each of my videos, I like to include some footage of my dog Sugar, who has comforted me in some of my darkest moments, and through this channel can hopefully comfort you and give you a reason to smile and push forward. Before you go, thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video as you bask in the glory of Sugar.